to the Pentagon. They say they haven't received any requests to try and help with that process. But they have been saying for days that one of the problems is journalists aren't allowed in Libya, so they are going off secondhand information, and they are having trouble trying to figure out exactly what is happening on the ground as well.
But you've got to think that the White House is operating off better information, better intelligence than us, the media, does.
Well, you would think, but it was interesting during Egypt when they thought here at the White House that the former President Mubarak was going to step down, and then it didn't happen. And the press secretary was asked about that the next day. He said, well, we were talking to the same people in Egypt that all of you were. So they are really downplaying that they have any sort of intelligence network within Libya to really know what's happening on the ground. They are pointing all actions to the United Nations. They say that's where they're going to take steps. Now, Senator Kerry, who sometimes does speak for the administration when they feel that they can't, has put out a call for some very immediate steps. He wants to see U.S. sanctions. He wants oil companies to stop working there. He wants to send a message to the military in Libya that if this continues, the violence continues, that the U.S. will push for them to face war crimes trial. And he's also really pushing the Arab League and the African Union to take definitive steps. So in Washington, we are hearing calls for action, but it's not coming from the Obama administration. It's coming from the U.S. Senate.
All right, Patty, well, I'm sure those helicopters are landed now. Let you get on with it. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Well, the United Nations Security Council is holding a closed-door meeting to discuss the situation in Libya. On Monday, the deputy Libyan ambassador to the UN broke ties with the Libyan regime. He called the attacks on the Libyan people genocide. Well, earlier, the actual Libyan ambassador spoke to reporters. He did not break with the Libyan leader, but Abdul Rahman Shalgam said he had spoken with Gaddafi and told him that now is time for reform.
I told him, Muhammad, we've grown old. Let's give an opportunity to the youth. He told me, we give opportunities to our sons. I told him, my children aren't with us. My children want change. And he told me, so do my children. During these difficult circumstances, when I see people, these sycophants who used to kiss his hands and his head, those bastards have now betrayed us. They are dogs. They've betrayed us. I spoke with Saif al-Islam for 5 hours. We must create a constitution, give people a chance to have a free media, to create a true democracy. This is our country. We cannot kill our children. I'm talking about all levels. I am pressuring all government officials to stop the violence.
Well, the UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, he condemned the violence in Libya earlier. He harshly criticized the action of Gaddafi's regime.
I have seen very disturbing and shocking scenes where Libyan authorities have been firing at demonstrators from the warplanes and helicopters. This is unacceptable. This must stop immediately. This is a serious violation of international humanitarian law.
Well, for more from the United Nations, let's speak to AlJazeera's Scott Heidler. Scott, meeting number 2 of the day underway there. What's happening?
Yeah, Nick, and the ambassador, we've now found out sources that were in the first part of this meeting. That is still going on right now. We've found out that the ambassador, Shalgan, he is the only one to have spoken. And what from the Libyan mission to the United Nations, and what we're hearing is that he tried to bridge the gap between he and his deputy's comments over the last several hours. And he said a couple of things to the Security Council. He said that there's the Attorney General is investigating the deaths in Libya. He said that the eastern part of the country is primarily in control of it being controlled by civilians, and he said that they have some machinery and weapons of the armies. So the eastern part of Libya, this coming from the Libyan ambassador to the United Nations, saying the eastern part of the country is in control by the people. And he spoke, it sounds like, for about 10 to 15 minutes. He spoke, the chief political officer for the United Nations spoke, and he focused more on the refugee situation and the humanitarian crisis that's unfolding in Libya. Together, that was about 15 to 20 minutes. They exited probably about 10, 15 minutes ago from now. And what's happening is the members of the Security Council, the 15 members of the Security Council, are haggling over the wording of a statement that we're expecting in the coming hours. We thought it might be a little bit more quick than this, but it sounds like there's a bit of back and forth when it comes to the exact wording of this statement that will be read by the President of the Security Council. Right,
and Scott, haggling over words is something that UN is pretty good at, and there's been a lot of difficulties with so-called procedural issues today, and many would argue that there just isn't time for that sort of thing. It is now the time for the UN to step up to the plate and it's under the spotlight, and if it doesn't act now, when will it?
Exactly, and that's even once this haggling over wording is completed, we're hearing, our sources are telling us, I should say, that this is simply going to be a statement, a press statement is what they call it, coming out of the Security Council. It's not even, it's third in line of what would come out of a special session, an emergency session of the Security Council. You've got a resolution, you have a presidential statement that is read in the chambers, put into the public record of a Security Council session, and then you have a press statement, and that's what we're hearing. That's what's going to come out of this meeting. So most likely there's not even going to be a real call to action or a next steps in this press statement, but that doesn't mean that they can't convene down the line and do something. But right now, they're even just haggling over the wording of what the Security Council is going to say in a unified voice about what's going on in Libya right now.
Right, we'll see what they come up with as time goes on in the next few hours. Scott, thanks very much indeed. Let's see how South America has been taking all this on. Some Latin American nations have been given a response to what's going on in Libya. The Chilean government, for one, released a statement saying it expresses its extreme concern for the evolution of the political situation and the use of force in Libya. Similarly, the Brazilian government urges the Libyan authorities to take measures so as to preserve the security and the free circulation of foreigners in the country. Brazil, I should say, has billions of dollars invested in Libya, and in a telephone call to Gaddafi in Nicaragua, the president there, Daniel Ortega, a longtime ally of Gaddafi, expressed his solidarity, saying the Libyan leader is, quote, again waging a great battle to defend the unity of his nation. Ortega added, it's at difficult times that loyalty and resolve are put to the test. So Nicaragua, one country backing Gaddafi. But Venezuela's president, Hugo Chavez, who is among Gaddafi's closest allies, has yet to comment. Let's speak more on that with our Latin American editor, Lucia Newman. She's currently in Port-au-Prince in Haiti, but has been following events across the region as all this has been going on. Was some talk, Lucia, wasn't there, that Gaddafi was heading to Venezuela? Is there any sign that the Venezuelan president is supporting Gaddafi in any way?
You know, it's very interesting. The Venezuelans were very quick to make it clear that it wasn't true that Colonel Gaddafi was not in Venezuela, but rather still in his country. And very interestingly, despite the fact that President Hugo Chavez of Venezuela was as recently as October in Libya, he was received as a friend, he is keeping absolutely mute about, at least in terms of giving any overt support for his colleague in Libya. The only thing that the Venezuelans have said, and I'm quoting, is, we hope the Libyan people find a peaceful solution to their difficulties and that the integrity of the people and the nation are preserved. Again, not a word of overt support for Colonel Gaddafi. The only lip service, perhaps, is a reference to their mutual foe, the United States, in which Venezuela says that it hopes that this peaceful resolution can be achieved without the intervention of imperialism, again, referring to the United States.
Lucia, Gaddafi in the past has found friends in Cuba, amongst other countries. What about the Cuban position? Interesting words from Fidel Castro, amongst others.